All right, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to go ahead and call this Friday, July 10th, 2020 special meeting to order. All board members are present with a host of administrative staff. We have one action item on the agenda today, and I will go ahead and pass it over to
I move to approve ASD memorandum number 002 and approve and authorize the superintendent to accept a coronavirus aid relief and economic security CARES Act grant from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development in the amount of $12,069,484.
Second, Alwoman.
I have an amendment.
Okay, actually that's first. I have a second. And Member Marset.
I would like to remove elementary health teachers of $3,200,000. Based on the fact this is a one-year funding, and I don't necessarily know that health teachers are going to be used in the capacity that they would have been anyway.
Board Member Hildy.
I would like a little feedback on that because we've heard like music teachers would be generalists, art teachers would be generalists.
As opposed to I've got an amendment, so I
second.
I need a second to discuss.
Second, my bad.
All right. So we have an amendment to memorandum 002 to remove the $3.2 million for elementary health teachers. And Member Hildy, if you could state your question one more time.
Oh, yeah, I just share the question. If we're going to have like music teachers, art teachers, PE teachers be generalists and not do their specific training, which is significantly more than health teachers training, at least for music teachers now, I would just like more input on that.
Dr. Bishop?
Through the president to Member Hildy, health teachers were not going to teach health. They were going to be utilized in the same fashion. But again, remember this change was made initially to put resources in alternative places and to utilize the health teachers in different areas, understanding the shortfall. This was the issue in regard just to, the assembly, but they would essentially be supports to classrooms, not with their own classroom. And not in necessarily mental health or other things that, not in that capacity, but just generalist in the classroom.
Okay. Member Holloman, you had your hand raised.
The situation we're starting in is temporary. I mean, we hope. And it may go along like that for a little bit, and it may lead to opening back up to normal school. It may lead to shutting down completely and going back online. If we disband the program of health teachers, we'll never put it back together again in the near term unless oil hits $120 or $130 a barrel for a sustained period of time. I personally, we got a lot of feedback from the community. They want resources like that available to their kids. Those teachers will stay trained up and informed in that area and be ready to resume the schedule that they had, assuming we achieve normalcy again. And I believe we will at some point. So I think as the superintendent just pointed out, we would still use that money. We'd still be using it with those people in a different capacity. But if we dissolve that program, they cease to be concerned about maintaining their currency in the materials and as a group, and they're not ready to go back and keep doing what they're doing. So unless we want to actually give this money back to the state, which I don't think we do, accept it, use it for those people, keep them in their specialty, we're going to use them differently for some period of time, but then we're going to revert back to our normal operation.
Thank you. Board Member Bellamy, I see your hand raised.
Yes, so a point of clarification and then a comment. So right now, we're only accepting the funds right now, right? We can always, we should be able to go back and decide how we're going to spend it later, right?
Through the President, to Member Bellamy. This is actually a grant by deed, and so we do have to respond, and I'm going to ask Jim Anderson to weigh in. We do have to apply to use the funds for specific reasons. So, Mr. Anderson, could you share if we have some flexibility, as Member Bellamy asked?
Yes, ma'am, be happy to. So this board memo is very similar to the template we've been sharing for, I don't know, the last 6+ weeks, as we talked about how we would spend the CARES Act funds. We did write the grant already. There certainly is some flexibility into how we do it, but really the reason we briefed the board prior for things like information technology, blended learning course development, and as you go down these, is a lot of this money has already been obligated.
Right.
We couldn't wait until the middle of July to start summer school, but we had to receive the grant to be able to get you to approve the board memo. So we tried to give you a heads up. So for the elementary health teachers, the board certainly could make a decision about the elementary health program. But Member Bellamy, as you're aware, those teachers, were we to actually lay off teachers, would have had to have been done back in May. Right. So we could certainly use those teachers for something else. On the information technology, we've been ordering IT equipment for the last 6 weeks. So at this point, we can't unorder it. We could cancel it. I mean, for things that potentially we could do that, but there's not a lot of flexibility. When you look at the blended learning course development, that's the 250 teachers that have been working for Jenny Knutson, started over a week or so ago, and they're building all of the curriculum. I don't think we need to talk about summer school. The sanitation supplies, personal protective equipment, we've ordered hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had already planned on using $300,000 out of the CARES Act, but quite honestly, we still have more to order. Yeah. So the equitable outcomes support, that's still being defined and worked as to what that $200,000 would specifically be used for. The charter schools was really a breakout by the foundation formula of what the charter schools percentage would be, just following the normal funding formulas that we use. The non-public schools are those private schools that Secretary DeVos sent guidance out very early on that said any private school that wants to sign up for this, regardless of income status, i.e. were they a Title I like school, would automatically receive funding. And there have been multiple legal assessments on Secretary DeVos's ability to make that a directive. What came out most recently about 2 weeks ago was technically the districts could in fact not support private schools, but if they did that, they could only use CARES Act money specifically and only for Title I schools within their district and not for district-wide resources. Like most districts in the nation, we've been spending CARES Act money already, and we can't undo that and refocus it.
Jim, thank you. They're signaling. They had the question answered. Thank you.
And so thanks, Jim. So the other thing is that I just think that for us to cut the health teachers out now, I just think that would send the absolute wrong message during a time that is already very stressful, and we're going to need more resources. I mean, I just think that, and not only that, we gave our word to the assembly, whether we liked it or not, that we would add them back in if we got money. And so we got the money, we added them back in. There is some flexibility to deal with this later. I just don't, I think right now we should, I support the main motion to just accept the grant funds based on what we've already approved, because we've seen that document now multiple times and talked about it multiple times. So I can't support the motion. I just want to accept the money, make sure we got it, and just move on. This would just add a whole layer of stress. I'm stressful here just thinking about it. I can imagine what the people who have to do, what our staff, how they would feel about it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Member Bellamy. I want to create just a second of space for Board Member Donnelly if he has any questions related to this amendment. Member Donnelly, did you have any questions or comments?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I guess I wanted a little extra explanation from Member Marcette of what her reasoning was behind this amendment. If I would appreciate that. I didn't quite understand what the goal was.
Okay, thank you. And she had her hand up as well.
So my goal was, and to have the conversation and to get more information. Also because we had approved the funding for 1 year to bring health teachers back. This is not to continue it forever. And if this was something that was not going to be attainable, or we weren't going to be able to use them in that capacity, I don't want to lay off teachers either. And if that is the alternative, then I would probably withdraw my amendment, because at this point, it's not, my goal is not to lay off teachers that expect to have a job for next year. But the other thing I do want to make a point clear, we never, and I was at that assembly meeting when they voted on the budget, we never promised them that we would spend this money if they gave us money. We said we would take it under consideration. But I want to make it very clear that we never promised the assembly that we would reinstate health teachers if they gave us money.
Star, is there another use? Is this like a zero-sum game? If we don't use this money for this, can we use it for something else? And if so, is there a higher priority you'd like to use it for?
Well, if I guess I would leave that up to Dr. Bishop. My thought was if we could use this for something else, knowing that we're not, and I don't know if health teachers get paid more because they're a specialist or whatever. I'm just always looking at the dollars and how we spend them. Again, if these individuals have been promised a job for this next year, I certainly don't want to take that job away from them. And that sounds like that's the case here if we were to vote to remove this.
So
is that true, Dr. Bishop?
Yeah, through the president to Member Marcette, just so you know, the original budget did have the FTE in it. They were just utilized in a different manner. At this point in time, certainly you could say, let's take 40 teachers or 30, because we have, and have additional K-1 classrooms to have it, no matter what, even when people come back, have it small. Those are some of the ideas. It's just the timeline for that. The timeline for that is just difficult right now. And there was an interest in mental health professionals instead of FTE on health teachers. Let's put FTE in health professionals, others. And so those were the conversations during the budget time. And yes, there was discussion about utilizing FTE differently for supports to meet goals. But at this point in time, I would not recommend it just because of the change and the movement it would take. We would have had to have noticed people, it would be a difficult time right now. But the question of, is there a place to use? Yes, and that was all through the budget process. But at this point with this, I would utilize as support to classrooms as the plan has been from the task force. Yeah.
So we're prepared to remove my amendment based on the information that I've received. I wanted to have the discussion and see what our options were, but based on the information I received, I removed my amendment.
Okay. And Alicia's the second. Are you good with that? Okay. Thumbs up on there as well. All right. So now we are back to the main motion on the floor, which is to authorize the administration to accept the CARES grant funding of $12,069,484. Are there any other board member questions or comments on the main motion as is? Not seeing any. Katie, would you please do roll call for us?
Member Mitchell,
Yes.
Member Marset,
Yes.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
Member Hildy,
Yes.
Member Donnelly,
Yes.
Member Bellamy,
Yes.
Member Vacalis.
Yes. ASD Memorandum 002 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays. This was the only item on our agenda this afternoon. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and participation today. Have a good evening.